Still Sun 4K. And tonight I'm coming to you live from the Grindfest 2025 Film Festival, brought to us by Orangetown University.
Grindfest?
Yeah, I didn't pick the name.
So, a grindhouse festival, huh?
I don't know what makes an absolute classic yet.
Now that is sex and ice cream.
By God's grace, it'll stay that way. Showing more of your sinful, trashy movies?
It's like a black and white art house movie, something about like cults and rituals. And think about it. One night only, we play the absolute cheesiest movies, and then we cap it off with this.
40 years ago, I got lucky. I was able to push it back then. I've shredded that film, I've burned it. But it always comes back somehow. It's just creating some kind of warp. Space, time, everything smeared together.
Welcome to the Longest Take podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Longest Take podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by director and writer Mark Cantu and actor Brian Ceponis, where we discuss some of their creative processes, previous works, and also their upcoming movie Grind. Please check it out, check out their crowdfunding, and enjoy today's episode. All right, so I like to kick it off like this every time, but what are your top 5 favorite movies?
I'm going to let Brian start with that one, actually.
There we go.
Oh, come on. All right. Well, my first one is easy. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's just my all-time favorite. And top 5 is I'd have to go. I also I'm kind of old school. Empire Strikes Back. Love that film. Gladiator is another fan favorite of mine. It's funny because I was tossing back and forth. There's so many. You get to that point, the 3 or 4. Again, I'm gonna go old school. I like Die Hard. I like Top Gun. I'm a kid of the '80s, and I just such good films in the '80s that I'm big fan of.
Yeah, that's a great time. I mean, look what it inspired nowadays. You know, the '80s were great.
Exactly.
That's partially responsible for Grind. So just to let you know, that's
Good to know.
We're both children of the '80s, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my money, I would say so. Jaws is number 1 on the list. Like, it's always going to be top for me. But after that, I have to wind up actually going Hot Fuzz. True Romance is another like amazing one. There you go. That's it.
There it is. There it is.
But yeah, True Romance, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and I'm gonna actually say probably Sideways in there as well. Ooh. So that's another like hidden gem that like everybody kind of forgets about. I'm like, no, it deserves to be on the list for sure.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti, that amazing role. That's the first time where I was like, wow, this guy got acting chops. You know, he really. And Alexander Payne, right? He wrote and directed that one.
Yeah, Alexander Payne. And actually, my first impression of Paul Giamatti was in Planet of the Apes, which was like 5 years before that. And I was like, this movie is terrible, but this guy is crushing it underneath all the prosthetics and everything. And then you see him in person, you're like, oh my God, like never hide your face ever again. Like he's got just one of those character actor faces.
He's a character actor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you watch,
and his voice is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And if you watch Black Mirror in the latest season, he had the best episode.
Oh, I didn't even know he was on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Eulogy, but it's fantastic. Very emotional episode, and Paul Giamatti kills it, like you would expect.
Right. As per usual. Yeah.
So this next question I'm gonna ask Mark. So you've got quite a few credits on your name for writing and directing, but I had heard in a previous interview that Massacre Academy was like the first project where you really felt it was yours, like your own, right?
Yeah.
What about it kind of gave you that impression as you were working on it?
For Massacre, we were kind of so it was a bit of a tricky kind of like story there. So I had kind of come out of a pretty bad stretch of like just personal issues and things like that. And I'm usually pretty public about stuff like that. But I had kind of come out of a situation where, you know, you had been surrounded by the wrong people. I was drinking probably a little too much at the time. And so I finally like was able to get my head on straight for like the first time in like 10 years. And really focus in on, do I even want to be on set? Do I even want to create again? And before we had done Massacre, I had actually gone out and shot just a tiny short film just to prove whether or not I could even do it anymore, if I had the stomach for it anymore. And oddly enough, that was a werewolf short film, by the way. So I did that and I went, yeah, you know what? I've still got the taste for it. And not only do I have the taste for it, but I've got my passion back and I want to do it, but I want to do it the right way. And so going into Massacre, and I think about that time is when Brian and I met. It was right about that time. Mm-hmm. We were working on another project and it just kind of fell through. But I started to kind of put the idea together for Massacre, and I was like, what makes me passionate? What wakes me up, you know, in the morning? And I was like, I want to go old school 80s horror, and I want to go practical. I want to, you know, have big hair and like all those things that just get my juices going. And so I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to go and I want to do an 80s slash movie. And then as the story kind of evolved and kind of grew and like moved in certain ways, it just felt like it was coming from a big part of my soul at that point, especially. And I was able to kind of deal with some of the guilt that I had had from other things that had happened in my life, and just really injected as much of myself as possible into the process. So that it really felt like for the first time in a long time, I was actually writing from my heart and, you know, about myself basically. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's great context. Like, cause I had watched Massacre Academy, just a few days ago. I think it's on Tubi. And I think I want to revisit it now after hearing that piece of it, because it sounds like it was a very personal experience. So I think that kind of context, at least for me personally, when I watch something, I really appreciate that element of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that. It's one of those movies where, like I said, I was dealing with like the loss of my parents as well. And like I dealt with it a few years before that, but like really kind of putting it in the art and being like, look, I'm going to deal with it in the most public way possible. And the character that, you know, that Jess Euler plays is our main character, and she's dealing with survivor's guilt, and she's dealing with a whole bunch of, you know, issues and anxiety and PTSD and all those things, like I said, are kind of baked in from my personality. And like I said, so it's dealing with it in a very kind of like, you know, fun kind of 80s slasher kind of way, but it's still dealing with very real things at that point. So, you know.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's cathartic too in that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to grind and, you know, projects you've made post Massacre Academy, well, we'll focus on grind. Do you feel like it doesn't have to be that it's such a personal movie, but do you feel like you're still like in that zone that you felt yourself in Massacre Academy?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that we've kind of, and Brian can speak to this as well, one of the things that I've really tried to focus on, especially since Massacre, because Massacre felt like the best situation possible, and then we tried to carry that over into Wolf Hollow, and then we tried to carry it over into Grind as well. I feel like Grind, out of all the projects that we've done so far, the three that Brian and I have done, certainly, it feels like the most team-oriented project that I've done at this point. And by that, in the best way possible, I mean that it's not just my voice now. It's not just me kind of saying, well, here's what I think is best for the project. Here's what I think is going to work. And because there were drafts on Grind where Brian and I would kind of go back and forth, and not in a negative way, but we would kind of go back and forth, and I would go, here, I'm going to kill this character, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And he would go, it's probably not the best. He's like, I really think we should maybe not do that and go this way instead. And it wasn't like we would kind of fight about it, but we would kind of go, well, give me your reason for it, and let's talk it out, and let's kind of analyze why that should go that trajectory. And so then I'm all for making, decisions like that when we're just writing, because it's just paper. It's just, we're not wasting anything. And so in that situation, on Grind especially, it's felt like a team effort where it's like, I've got your back, you've got my back. Like we're all kind of standing shoulder to shoulder finally. And it really feels like we're all pushing the boulder up the hill at this point. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to kind of have that, almost like it's like a family dynamic too, not just a team, but you're creating together. Yeah. So I think that's awesome. Brian, so your credits on IMDb, you've got like 88 credits, which is kind of insane. It's kind of a lot, but I was curious to know, because some of the things that I noticed, like you're on a project like Grind, and then I noticed that you were recently in Cabrini, which, if you can tell, like the genre between those two movies in particular, very different. So just kind of, one, what draws you to a project, and then two, what are the differences between like a project like Cabrini and then something like Grind? Like, what's that set life like?
Yeah, in terms of what draws me to a project, I think a lot of it has to do with the story, the script, to start with. Plus, kind of the people involved. I want to know who's involved. Like anybody from the DP to the director to the cast. You want to be doing things that I don't know if challenge is the right word, but challenge you, but also engage your imagination and engage your emotion and engage your wanting to be part of the story. Because there's a lot of scripts that come across my desk and you see them like, yeah, I don't know if I'd have my dog do this film, but there's a lot that goes into the decision, because you want to have something that you can look at the end and say, okay, this is something that I want my family to see, my friends to see. I'm really excited about it, and not just say, okay, I'm done with it. Maybe take my name off the credits on this one and just kind of slide by that. So it's the whole creative process, like Mark was saying with Grind especially, and I know having and seeing the progression from Massacre through Wolf to Grind, it's so cool to see. And he's absolutely right. Every step of the way, it's gotten better and better in terms of the production quality, the storyline, the whole team effort, and that's why I think Grind is going to be such a fun and entertaining film, because you've got so many components are going into this thing, but they're all pulling in the same direction. You don't have one person's like, I'm the star, and it's about me. There's none of that, which is great. So it's just having a good story. I mean, story is always is king. That's the thing. If you don't have a story, you don't have a film. You can wrap in as much special effects and nonsense as you want, but if there's no story there, it's not gonna be something that's gonna have legs and people are gonna glom onto. As far as the difference between something like Cabrini and Grind, I don't honestly. The only difference that in my experience is I had a trailer in Cabrini. I didn't have a trailer in Grind. I don't know why I didn't have one, Mark.
Uh-oh.
You said you didn't want one. You said all the money had to go to your mustache. That's what it was.
Yeah. I think Wes Brantley took my trailer that day.
You know what? That's exactly what it was. And when you see the movie, you'll understand. So there you go.
Wes Brantley took my trailer. But it's just, I think it's more just the kind of the scale. There's a film of that nature has so many more people involved, and the locations. We shot, my scene was up in Buffalo, was ultimately made to look like the New York Harbor, but we shot it in Buffalo. And just the scale of the film. I don't think there's any difference in terms of the storytelling and in terms of the quality of the cast, because the quality of the cast that we have in Grind is phenomenal. And when you see the film, you're going to understand that it's from top to bottom, from frame one to the last frame. There isn't a false note. There isn't someone that you're like, oh, I wish they'd kind of die off or something. But
right.
And obviously the cast in Cabrini is unbelievable and amazing. That film is a really good film. But in terms of like the storytelling and the cast, I don't see a difference. It's just the technical side, the support and all the resources that Cabrini had available to it to bring that story to life was just a bigger scale than something like Grind. So obviously the budget.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, of course, budget plays it. So, did you feel like Grind was kind of more of like a, not like smaller, but more of like you felt more at home because you were surrounded by people like Mark, whereas Cabrini, maybe you didn't have as many familiar faces or something?
That is 100% true. I mean, at Cabrini, you go in, you're doing your stuff, and everybody was, like I said, everybody on set was great,
right.
from the makeup folks and the people that put my mustache on and all that stuff. And then the director came in and we chatted for a bit, but it didn't have the same family orient. Like I said, I work with Mark for a long time now, and there were so many people on set that I've known from other projects, and to have on Grind, it definitely had an absolute family feel, and it had that feel that everybody was there for the best interest of the film. You know, a lot of times when you get on these bigger sets, people are just kind of coming and going and doing their little bit, and they're just like, hey, I just want to do my bit and kind of get my paycheck and go about my merry way. But with something like a film like Grind, everybody has a vested interest to make sure that film is as good as it can be, because it's going to help them in the long term in terms of getting things out there and getting their names and notoriety out there. So there was that absolute difference in terms of feel on set.
Very, very interesting. And also some of your other credits include producing and writing. So do you have a preference when it comes to each of these things? Because I also noticed that you're one of the owners, or you're just a big part of Red Slate Films. Do you have a preference as to what you want to do when you work on a film?
Yeah, I am one of the owners of Red Slate, and my preference, I'm not a writer. And producing, I do only because I have to with the small, independent film companies. You have to wear 1,000 hats, right? Because you can't afford to have producers or all that stuff. So I'm not a fan of producing, and I can write, but to me it's tedious, and like someone like Mark, who just, the stuff he writes is phenomenal, and I read it and I'm like, oh my God, where does this come from? I wish I could sit there and write this. And even my colleague at Red Slate, Jesse Hutchins, the stuff he writes is phenomenal. He's just gotten so much better at writing things, and I look at that as like it's a true talent, and I appreciate and respect people that can write like that. Like I said, I can write, but it would take me. Mark will write. He'll knock a script out in a week. Like he's done. Like after Wolf Hall, I'm done. I'm not doing anything. And then 2 weeks later, I got the script for Grind. I'm like, are you kidding me with this? You said you were done for a while. It would have taken me 2 years to write Grind. So
that
out of the three of
nervous breakdowns, but still, that exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of the three of those, between writer, producer, and actor, I'm definitely actor by far first.
Awesome. Speaking of actors, so Mark, back to you. I've noticed, especially in a movie like Massacre Academy, you had horror royalty such as like Lynn Lowry, Dave Sheridan, YouTuber Sean C. Phillips. You've gotten some people into your films. Just kind of who are some other people that you haven't worked with yet, but you would love to work with? And a quick side note. So Stephen Livengood, I think he's a small role in Grind. He's got a big role in this project that I'm helping out. That's filming around by me. My buddy's directing it. So it was. I saw him on the cast, and then we're in a group chat for this new project, and I was like, "Hey, are you in Grind?" He was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, no way! That's a small world."
He's got 2 roles in Grind. So, like I said, I love Steven to death. Absolutely love him to death. But yeah, he's one of those guys that like just kind of like popped into our radar like right before filming, and we were like, hey, do you want to come play? Like, you want to come be in our movie? And like, it all worked out perfectly.
Awesome.
But yeah, like we've definitely been blessed to like work with some pretty heavy hitters, and like Lynn Lowry and Felissa Rose. Dave Sheridan, like I said, we had Dave for half a day on Massacre Academy, and it was like one of the coolest experiences of my life. So like, he is one of the most like underappreciated actors around. So I had a great time with him. One of the ones that's always been on my bucket list, and there's a reason why she's on my bucket list, is Catherine Mary Stewart. So she is from Last Starfighter, Weekend at Bernie's. And I was supposed to work with her on like one of my first features back in Texas, and things went to crap, and like things just fell through. And it was like, we were so close. Like, I had talked to her on the phone, and like, we were like, yeah, the character is this, the character is that. And it just wound up going south like super quick. And it was like, okay. So then that's one that I've always kind of wanted to get back and just be like, things have improved since then, Catherine. I swear to God, it's a completely different situation now. So Catherine is, like I said, is definitely one that's always kind of been like in my heart, just kind of like, hopefully we can get back to that point where we can be like, hey, we're good now. We can get you back on set and, you know, have a great time. But honestly, beyond that, I Malcolm McDowell is probably one of the other ones where I'm just like, if you could afford a guy like that, like just to say that you like were around his aura, like it would be amazing, you know? So like, that's another one that I would definitely kind of want to take a crack at. So.
Yeah. And how old is he now? Do you know if he's still working?
Oh, God. I know that like when we left Texas, he had done a couple of things like there for some other projects. Him and Lance Henriksen had both like done some stuff around the same time in Texas. And so I know that they still work on occasion, but like they've made so much money at this point in their careers. They're like, I don't have to work. I'm like, I can, but I don't need to. But yeah, like him, Lance Henriksen, Brad Dourif would be another like amazing one to like be like, hey, let's get you on set for a day. You know, that'd be amazing. So
yeah. Brad Dourif, the Gemini Killer. That's I think that's my favorite thing he's done.
Love that. I love him in Extras 3. And my wife and I, we were actually watching The Pit, which is on HBO Max, and he's Fiona Dourif's like father, obviously, but she's one of the lead characters, and he comes in for like a couple of scenes and plays her real dad in the show, and you're just like, that's amazing. Like he's playing like a normal grandpa guy, and you're just like, that's amazing. Like that's so cool just to see him like normal and not a killer, and you know, not worm tongue or you know anything like that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I haven't seen The Pit, but I knew Fiona was in it. I had no idea that he cameos in it. That's super awesome.
Yeah, and it's just 2 quick scenes, but he comes in and like literally steals the show. Like, and of course he does. Of course he comes in and steals the show. So
right.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, and going back to grind a little bit. So the thing that brought me to want to invest in this is the fact that it's cosmic horror. And now I think that like at this point, it's such untapped potential. So what was the inspiration behind this story? And in particular, Near Lethetep, because the crawling chaos, I love Near Lethetep. Never seen him in a movie, I don't think. It's always like Cthulhu, or what is it, Dagon, the fish people.
Yeah.
So what kind of inspired you with that?
So and Brian knows this all. So like I said, so we were kind of coming off of Wolf Hollow, and I was at a point where I was just like, I was so burnt out and I was tired. And I think it was partially just kind of like dealing with just like being low, being kind of in a bit of a depressed state. And all of a sudden, like this well of creativity just kind of like sprung up. And I was like, oh, what is this? Where is this coming from? And so it kind of initially, the seeds for it just kind of came from the darkness and the depression and, you know, everything that I kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis. But it was one of those things where like I latched onto the fact that, you know, it's one of those characters, like, so we don't get to see a lot, but it's the fact that there is such a hatred from my perspective. There's such a hatred for man in general. Like, and he's one of the only outer gods to really speak to man as in mankind's form and not be in this, incomprehensible kind of squid form or anything like that. But to kind of come down to our level just because he hates us so much, and his only goal is to create chaos and madness and to watch us suffer, and that's it. And so that to me spoke to me as, oh, that's depression. That's, the dark pit that you could fall into. And all it wants to do is just to continue dragging you through everything and just make you suffer. And so as I was kind of going through those things and kind of coming back out into the light, I felt that, and I was like, you know what? I think that's the linchpin. That's the villain for whatever this movie is that I've got in my head. And I quite literally I was just trying to, I was painting, I was doing photography, and I just came up with a poster. I just threw something together and I just put the word grind, and I was like, I don't know what it means. I don't know what the hell it means. And I was like, let me try to figure it out. And then I started to kind of have those things just kind of bleed onto each other. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's this. And so it just kind of grew from there. And then funnily enough, it was like, well, how does Brian fit into this? And one of the things and that was quite literally like probably my third thought in the entire process. I was like, well, I can't put Brian in a suit again. And because it was like, you can't make him be, the crawling chaos, in our movie, we call it the creeping chaos. But you can't have him be that, because that would be like, well, that's too obvious. Brian can't do that. And so I was like, he's got to be something else. And if you've ever seen any of Brian's work, he is so funny, but he doesn't get the chance to be funny all the time. And so that was one of the things in my brain. I was like, I'm going to let Brian be as funny as possible. And I was like, well, I don't know what the character is. And then all of a sudden it quite literally just jumped out one day. It was like, if I put him in a mustache, he can be a 70s action hero, and just let him eat the screen as much as possible. And I was like, that will cure anybody's depression any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So that's where all that came from. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Brian, do you have are you partial at all to anything like cosmic horror or Lovecraft, or are you just kind of following Mark's lead at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the latter. I haven't really done any horror stuff before. I hadn't done much horror before Massacre, and then all of a sudden Mark's like, well, let's do this 80s horror slasher thing. Sure, why not? And then that led to Wolf Hollow, and then here we are with the cosmic horror of Grind. So I never was, I mean, I would watch horror movies, but I'm not the biggest horror fan out there, but there's a huge market. And I found out on Massacre, we were doing the frat house massacre scene. Mark had all these people coming in from everywhere, and I'm sitting here talking to these people. I'm thinking they're all local Pittsburgh actors, and they're, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Florida, California. They came from all over the country just to come in for this weekend to do this scene with the frat house and be killed on screen. And I was talking, like, I had no idea how big the horror audience is, and I was like, oh, okay, there's something there. So I just, my wife's a big horror fan. She likes horror. I just so I kind of live vicariously through her and the horror with that. But with the cosmic horror, I didn't know a lot about it, and when Mark was started talking about the ideas and stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun, and that could definitely work if we have the right characters and surround that with the right storyline. And damn it, we've done it.
Yeah. And I think one of the funny things too about everything is, especially with Grind, and more so on Grind than like on Wolf Hollow or Massacre, is we've kind of leaned into, yeah, we're doing the cosmic horror, but we're here just to be as silly as possible. Like, there's so much silliness in the movie, and like it kind of balances out. And it's one of those weird things where, like, unless you've been through the distribution process, they kind of get mad at you if you show blood in a trailer, and you're like, well, we're doing a horror movie. Like, what do we do? So it was one of the things on Grind where it was like, well, then let's cover everybody in slime, and then that way it's not blood, and we can show whatever the hell we want in the trailer. And so, like, it just grows out of your experience eventually. But yeah, like, Grind has just been one of those things where it's like we've leaned a little bit more into the silly, not necessarily Monty Python silly, but like silly enough where we're like, yeah, we're in on the joke as well, guys. So, but we're still gonna kind of show some gore here and there. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely charm to that. You know, if you take yourself too seriously, then the audience might laugh at you, you know, and it's always
Right.
good to kind of tackle it where it's like you said, you're in on the joke. Then the audience is going to feel that too, and I think there's such a charming element to that. So I'm looking forward to that. Do you have a runtime estimated right now with it? Like how long
so
you think
right
it'll be?
now, yeah, for Grind, and typically for most of our movies, I try to always aim for like 85 minutes, 85 to 90. I try not to overstay our welcome. I'm just like, let's just be a fastball down the center of the plate and just be, you know, a quick fast food cheeseburger. Like that's all we want to be. And, you know, I don't want to be a 3.5 hour epic. I mean, like I've seen some indie people try to do that, like, you know, back in Texas. And I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Like, why does it have to be 3.5 hours? And they're like, well, every scene is important. I'm like, is it though?
Nah.
Like, yeah, you can cut that down. You can whittle it down to an hour 45 and you'll be fine, you know? So
Yeah, it's definitely like the sweet spot, especially for horror, is probably around like 80 to 90, even 100 minutes. But I also love long movies. There's this element of cinema called slow cinema, and you'll have like Drive My Car, which is on HBO Max, I think. That's 3 hours long. One of my favorite movies of all time, it's called An Elephant Sitting Still. That's 4 hours. But I got to be in the mood for it, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, but no, definitely with horror especially, I think there's a sweet spot, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're tapping into. But I'll start with Mark for this question. So as a director, I mean, what's the most challenging thing that you face or have faced? And then what's the most rewarding thing about that process?
Honestly, I would just say, like, no matter what schedule we've ever had, it just never feels like you have enough time. And that, I mean, like, and whether that's a $300 million movie or, you know, a $25,000 movie like that we've done. And it's like, you're never going to have enough time to get everything that you want and get, you know, all the components there. You can get about 80 to 90% there sometimes if you're lucky. But you don't realize as a director or even as a producer, you don't realize how quickly time goes and flies on a set. Like the moment you hit the ground on a set, you're like the clock is ticking. And especially with when you've got people who are name actors and, you know, you're paying them quite a bit of money every single day. And if you go over one day and you have to bring them back another day, that's going to cost you another few $1,000s to do that. And it's like, well, do I cram them all in one day or how do I do that? You know? So it always feels like you're always up against the clock. Less so when you're kind of prepping, but like literally the moment you get on set and you start shooting for 2 weeks straight, you're up against the clock every single second. And every second is valuable at that point. So people take lunches and I'm still in the trenches trying to figure out what we're doing after lunch to get the next shot and maximize this and move this around. But so you can plan and you still have to improvise something at some point. So yeah, so it's always a time crunch. It's always that.
And what's the most rewarding element of the directing process?
I would actually say probably being in the premiere atmosphere, because you've kind of dragged it over the finish line at that point. Everything is, you know, kind of done. When it's on a DVD and you can, you know, sell it at the door, the premiere and stuff like that. And just to kind of sit back and just know what the movie's going to be, A to B, and not have to worry about it and just watch reactions now and just kind of go, okay. And Ceponis and I have been through this process where we've watched the movie so much by the time it's at the premiere, we know where things are. We know what's coming next. We know what the next beat is. We know what the next laugh should be. We're kind of like, we laugh at certain things and we're like, I hope they laugh here. And it's so funny to see an audience pick up on something that you didn't even like. You watched it for a year at this point and you go, really? That's the joke you laughed at? Like, it doesn't, you don't quite register it when you're in the editing process, but then an entire audience thinks it's funny as hell, you know? So it's little things like that where you're like, I wonder if that's going to play. I wonder if that's going to get the reaction that I expect it to get, you know? So, and there's definitely a couple of moments like that in Grind where we've gone in going, no, this is a real moment where the audience should 100% be on their feet for us at this point. So, so that I'm looking forward to stuff like that. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you have a designated location for where you're going to premiere Grind?
yes. So we actually are going to be premiering at the Lamp Theater, which is where we shot everything for Grind. So we're going to be back premiering it, almost a year to when we were in the location filming. so it's kind of just serendipitous that it all worked out for us. But it'll be nice to be in the facility, be with the same cast and crew, and be right there, in the aisles where we were filming a year ago. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you said that's going to be summertime, right?
Yes, so it's going to be August 9th at the Lamp Theater. So tickets should be going on sale probably in like the next month or so. But yeah, August 9th is our premiere.
Awesome. And Brian, so as an actor, as a performer, what's the most challenging thing that you face, and also what's the most rewarding thing?
It's always interesting to me that you get all these different characters, and you want to. I look at somebody like Daniel Day-Lewis, who, when he takes on a role, he disappears. You do not see Daniel Day-Lewis. It's his character 100%, and he's gone. And as an actor, that's something that I always strive for, is to, when I take on a character, I don't want to just be Brian Ceponis in that character, and all you see is Brian Ceponis. And there's a lot of that out there. I don't need to add to that. So I think one of the most rewarding things is when you look at a character and you have a vision of how you want that character to be, and you've studied it, you've done all your homework and everything, and you get on set and you do it, and you're working with the director and things, and then you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I envisioned it. I think that's one of the most rewarding things, like your character comes to life the way you want it to be, and it's your thumbprint. No one else can do it that way, and it's exactly how you had anticipated it. And the director and everybody's looking at it like, that is exactly what I want. You got everything meshing, and everybody's like, yes. That's and the case in point is like, I go back to like Wes Brantley when you see him, because he's such a different character for me, in a sense, because there's a very fine line with him that if you don't play him right, he could become a caricature and become kind of a joke, not in a good way. And it's something that I was not fretting over, but I was real adamant. It's like, I have to play him in a sense that he knows who he is and he believes who he is, but he's just kind of a big goof. But you can't play him as a goof. So it was that fine line that you're trying to find the levels, and he's got a lot of levels, even though it doesn't seem like it. But there's a lot to him that has to be played in certain ways. Otherwise, like I said, he would be a joke, and people would be laughing at him instead of with him, I guess, in a sense. And,
I think one of the things that sticks out, and I can say this because I've watched every single take that Brian's done as Wes Brantley, is he's absolutely right, is that it could border on just being a buffoon and being such a huge caricature, but Brian plays it, and this is why you have to have a great actor like Brian, is he walks that line of being slightly over the line, but then still being absolutely 100% sincere. And there's a sincerity to Wes Brantley that is like, he's a genuine guy. He's a real guy at his core, and you have to play that sincerity, but it can still be slightly off the wall at certain points. And that's kind of, like I said, that's him walking that line, but you have to have that grounding in, no, there's a sincerity, there's a real heartbeat there. But at the end of the day, he is kind of just off the wall, and he's kind of, this larger than life character. Yeah, exactly. So.
So that's kind of the most rewarding thing, is when it all kind of comes together and you see it and you're like, oh, yes. And it's captured on film and it can never go away.
Yeah, and then you get to add all the good stuff to an acting reel and put it up there and just have all your highlights, all the goods.
That is definitely a nice side benefit.
Yeah.
And this last question, gonna give it to both of you guys, like I did in the beginning. So, in 5 years, where do you see yourselves? Whether professionally, personally? Whoever wants to start, feel free.
Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, please.
Because I made you go first. So
Yes, I did.
That's fair.
honestly, I would say surrounded by the same group of wonderful creators that we have. Like I said, Brian, we've got another producer named Brian Bell, who's one of our brothers out in LA, who's just absolutely fantastic. And then Stanton Rutledge is another guy that's one of Brian's closest friends, and then he's become one of my closest. Like he's just, I adore him absolutely. But just our core of guys, Jesse Hutchins, like I said, just a few others as well. Just making sure that our core is solid and we are continuing to create the things that we're passionate about, as opposed to, kind of going off and just doing what somebody else wants us to do. We could probably do those things, but I'm like, but that wouldn't be fun for us. Like I said, I want us to all have a voice in the group that we've got together and just go, hey, we're all supporting each other. And maybe on this one, Brian Ceponis takes the lead, or Brian Bell takes the lead, or, Stanton's like, I've got a great idea and I'm passionate about this thing. To me, in 5 years, like I said, if we're supporting each other as a core, as kind of a band, really, like that's where I want to see us all, and just going, yeah, I've got your back. Like I may not be the director on this one. I'm probably just the DP or whatever. And, let's support that the rest of the way. That's the way, to me, it should be, So I've just been lucky enough to be the guy in charge for the last 3, but that doesn't always have to be the case, so.
Awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
No pressure, Brian. No pressure.
I couldn't agree more, and I absolutely could not have said it better myself. That is exactly what I see and envision. But I also have one caveat that I see myself in the next 5 years, and it's I want to thank the Academy.
There you go.
The only way you're doing that is if you have that damn mustache firmly across that lip.
I want to honk that Karen.
No, we got. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I have to put the West Brantley sunglasses on. Yeah, I'd like to thank the Academy for.
Don't tease me, because I will go make you shoot that scene and we'll figure it out. So
I'm game. So, but yes, within the 5 years, I'd like to thank.
Which, by the way, Sean, we have talked about, because we had such a love affair with West Brantley on Grind. We've talked about doing like a full blown like Grindhouse movie with just West Brantley, and yeah. So that feels like that's going to be the progression. That'll be the next thing that we do. So like I said, but I'm going to take some time off first, and relax and rest. So yeah.
So I'll have a script like 2 weeks after the premiere.
I was going to say,
yeah, exactly.
You said that after Wolf Hollow that you were going to take a break, and then it just 2 weeks later you had Grind ready.
But this time I really mean it.
Okay.
That means it's going to be, Sean, that means it's going to be 3 weeks this time.
3 weeks. So. Okay.
See,
he
Brian
really means it.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, and if doing this follow-up with Wes Brantley, I mean, who's he going to go up against this time? Are you going to stick like Cosmic Horror, or is it just going to be whatever?
That's spoiler for it. I will say that if we are lucky enough to go that route, it would wind up being like a hardcore, like 80s action movie, like Cannon Films. Like, we're going to go like Red Scorpion, like Commando, like just over the top action and like bloody kills, and like, so not horror, straight action. So we'd still need some gore, but yeah.
Yes.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that one. 5 years. That's the good 5-year plan for both of you, is to get this going.
Yeah. Commando, Invasion USA, like think Cobra. Of all those. That's Cobra. That's
Dirty Harry.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, all the classics. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So what would you guys like to plug? So usually at the end here, give you guys the floor. What you've got coming up. I know you talked a little bit about what you got planned for Grind. If there's any distribution plans, if you're going to post it online, all that stuff. Basically, I mean, the mic's yours. Just kind of, what can you plug at this moment? If there's crowdfunding still going on.
Yeah. So there is still crowdfunding going on for Grind because we hit our goal a couple of times actually. It still stays as an in-demand campaign. So like I said, so people can still go on and buy producer credits, buy perks, buy all that stuff. Beyond that, honestly, for me, I'm only focused on Grind right now. Like I said, that's really I want to be the captain of the ship and get this over the goal line and get it into movie theaters, get it onto on demand. Like I said, that's probably the biggest goal for me, and probably the next year is like really just shepherding Grind across whatever platforms it can be successful on. And beyond that, like I said, and I know you guys think I'm lying, but I really am going to probably take a break for a while after Grind, just because I'm so tired. So that's where I'm at with everything. But I know Brian's got a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, Grind is absolutely one of a priority, but the other huge priority for us is at Red Slate. Me and Jesse and Brian Cadlisek, who's our third wheel out there at Red Slate. We're gearing up for a feature film that we're shooting later this year called A Quiet Town, and we're going to be getting out a Indiegogo campaign fired up for that over the next couple of weeks. So we definitely need we're going to need some help on the financing on that from Indiegogo. We're trying to also reach out to some private investors for that. But that's a crime drama. We did a short proof of concept for that. It's like a 36-minute short that we had done just to kind of give folks a feel for it. And we're actually next week at a local theater here in Pittsburgh, the Lindsay Theater. We're doing a showcase where we're showcasing that short proof of concept and along with 3 other short films that Red Slate has done, just to kind of give people an idea what Red Slate can do and get some, hopefully get some interest in A Quiet Town, because that's going to be it's Jesse Hutchins wrote the script for that, and it's phenomenal. It has so many layers and levels and things about these 3 brothers that are one last kind of crime spree to try and get out of the business, so to speak. And of course, things don't always go according to plan. But yeah, it's going to be one hell of a ride, and that's kind of my focus after Grind and getting all that done.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to include some links and everything in the description.
Nice.
If anybody comes across this, all 2 people that listen to me, make sure.
It'll be me and Brian, right? It's gonna be me and Brian.
It's gonna be you 2, yeah.
We're giving money back and forth.
We sound so good, Brian. We sound
hey,
amazing.
Mark, I kicked in a Grind. You should kick in A Quiet Town. We'll just get back
Hey,
and
you
forth.
know what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Sean's just shaking his head. He's like, "Fucking people." So.
No, that'd be perfect for me. I wouldn't mind that at all. Love it. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me today. Like I've said before, really looking forward to Grind. I think that's going to be such a fun time. I can't wait to watch it and even see what more you guys can do. It's just, it's always so awesome to come across these independent filmmakers and who are such creatives in what they do. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more from both of you. And at least
fingers crossed.
Sorry, what'd you say?
No, I said just fingers crossed. Yeah, we definitely feel like there's a bit not pressure on this one, but we can definitely feel like people going, "What else do you have?" And you're like, yeah. "I got to finish it and make it right." So yeah, it definitely pushes you to do your best. So
yeah, Yep. I can't wait to see it. Thank you guys so much for hopping on here with me.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Sean. And thanks for being a part of Grind too yourself. We appreciate the support.
Yeah, of course.